Santosh?
Yes, ma'am. Start, ma'am.
Good morning to one and all. It's my tremendous honor to introduce our guest of honor for today's faculty development program. Dr. K. B.Rajalingam is presently teaching in the Department of Ancient Indian History, Culture, Archaeology, Vishwabharati Central University, Shantiniketan, West Bengal. He obtained his MA, MPhil degrees from Madurai Kamarajar University. He completed his PhD on the topic Socio-Economic Conditions of Aggressive Slaves in Medieval Tamil Country under the guidance of Professor Manikam. He has completed a course on epigraphy from the Archaeological Department of. He is the author of 3 books, Medieval Tamil Society and Agrarian Slavery, Temple and Society in South India, edited volume published from Delhi, and Facts of Tamil Culture, Perspective on Religious and Social Traditions in Early Medieval India. He specialized in various aspects of social and economic history of early and medieval South India. His various articles and research work has been published from several reputed journals of national and international. It's our proud privilege to have Dr. B.Rajalingam as resource person. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for warm welcoming and very good morning to everyone. As already told by Dr. Murugeshwari, so I have been working in the Department of Ancient Indian History, Culture and Archaeology from 2007. I have been engaging in teaching of socio and economic history, especially based on epigraphy and archaeological methods. At first, I put I would like to thank Dr. Abbas sir for inviting me in the very special workshop on research methodology . So it is showing some messages.
Okay. Just a minute.
It's showing some messages, please. So at the outset, I would like to thank Dr. Abbas sir for inviting me as one of resource person in 1 week national level faculty development program, which is organized by MVM Muthaidu Government Arts College for Women, Dindigul. I am very happy to sit in front of you. I also thank a principal of college, Dr. Murugeshwari, Dr. Jayakumari Jnanadevam, the program coordinator of the 1 week program. I also thank the participants. And finally, I thank those who really organizing or involving in the Zoom program. I thank one and all. So today, I'm going to talk about the ethnographic study, methods and technique. In history, in historical field, we have a different approach. We undertake different approach in studying history based on a different source material. If you look at the history,
Sir? Okay, sir.
it is a process of unending a process based on the historical materials. In history, minimally three things is important. What happened in the past? That is important. What historian believes what happened in the past? The next, what people believes what happened in the past. These are the many important three things in history writing, in historical research. These play vital role. How historians undertake research? What are the researchers are available? What are the researches we do in historical study? How the historian play vital role in reconstructing the history of any region or any dynasty? Historians play vital role, whether it is historical research or social science research or anthropological or sociological research or ethnographical research. The historian or ethnographer's role is very much important. How he is dealing with sources. In regarding the sources, sources are same. If we want to write the social history, economic history, or the political history, or cultural aspect, the sources are same, but it varies depending upon the approach the scholar undertake. The interpretation of the history also varies from historians to historians. For example, if you look at a tree, a big tree, if a carpenter looks at a tree, it gives different outlook. He can plan how many windows he can make, how many journal the tree will give. That is his perception, his approach. If a historian see the tree, he analyze the age of the tree, how long the age. If an artist see, his approach is different. His view, very artistic view. The tree is one, but it gives a different outlooks to a different people. In the same way, the sources are same, whether it is epigraphy or numismatic or literary sources. The sources are same. It vary depend upon the historian. They want to data from the particular aspect. The social historian looks the literature in social aspect. A religious historian looks the sources, or whether it is epigraphy or the archaeological sources, his perception, his approach is totally different from the historian. So we have the historian's role is very much important in bringing historical fact in the historical scenery. What is another important thing? The historical sources, whether it is epigraphy, numismatic, or archaeological sources can't speak itself. It cannot speak. On behalf of sources, historians speak. That is called the interpretations. So whatever we have in the historical study, it is all the historical interpretation of the historians. If you remove the historical interpretation, historians' own interpretation, there is no history. The history, it is a kind of the interpretation or reconstruction by the historian that you can find. Then on the basis of the objectivity, the historian approach is different. The objectivity, a historical writing based on what sources say. But in subjectivity, we find more the influence of the historians. Bias writing. The bias approach we find in the subjectivity historical writing, but in objectivity, we find it is a purely a historical fact based on the historical fact. So we have a different research method. In history, in social sciences, we have the researchers. We do basic research, that is called the fundamental research. Then applied research. In history also, we applied anthropology, sociology. We applied the economic theory in historical studies, applied research, the qualitative and quantitative research. The quantitative research deals with the numerical value of the text, the numerical value of the data. The qualitative research, a form of a scientific reconstruction, is study the value and the practices and the rituals of the particular community or particular social formations. Apart from these, we have descriptive or interpretative research. Even all the resources I want to discuss about today in historical research, ethno-research or ethnographic study is very much important in the field of historical studies. Historical research is based on historical data. It is based on the source material. The source materials are historians' raw material, which help historians to reconstruct the human past, maybe the glorious past. The sources of the historical writing in historical methodology, we can divide the material sources, literary sources, and empirical data. What we call material sources, whatever we get in the material form, in the form of tools, in the form of coins, in the form of inscriptions, in the form of archaeological remains, monumental remains, which all will consider as the material culture. Whatever we study, a historical aspect from material remains, that we called as the material culture. We have a large number of the inscriptions in looking the early Tamil society or early Indian society, the literary sources, which are very plenty in number, which help us to understand the historic period. The writing of the historic period, it's the meaning. The empirical data, we cannot see as the data in the form of material or in the form of the literatures. It is a kind of the material, we'll get it from the ethnographic method or different methods in collecting the data from that is called the empirical data. Maybe in the form of culture, in the form of practices, in the form of tradition, folk tradition, or indigenous traditions, we find the data. It is not visible data, it is a kind of empirical data. Most of the qualitative research in historical study based on using of the empirical data. So empirical data is very much important in study ethnographical field as well as the ethnographer. He always use the for understanding of the ethnoculture or ethnic identity through empirical data. So empirical data will help us understanding the ethnographic of the particular community or particular race. The historical research, it is a scientific investigations. We apply some scientific method. The scientific methods we follow, we maintain a proper methodology. On the basis of the proper methodology, it carries a different stages. That is called the process of the historical writing. In the historical writing, in the process of historical writing or ethnographical study or archaeological study, there are some standard method. A researcher, a historian, they should maintain, follow the period, or maybe the systematic, the study of the research on the basis of the investigation idea. On the basis of that, the selection of the topic in the investigation, in the systematic process of the investigation, the selection of the topic is very much important. In the selection of topic and selection of the research guide, it is too important. The first step in any research activity, whether it is a science research or social science research, if any researcher, if they are successful in selecting a suitable topic and suitable research guide, 50% of his job will be over. My PhD guide used to say, it is selecting a topic, selecting a suitable guide, it is a kind of selecting a life partner. If you complete successfully the two things, the first two things, you will be in your research, your idea, you will become very clear cut in your research. In the historical research, the first step we'll follow, there are three levels we can find. The primary level, maybe the secondary level, and the next level, the tertiary level. In the primary level, the selection of topic and collection of the original data. I'll come later about the ethnographical study. The selection of the topic is very much important. There is some method we have to select the topic. Then after selecting the topic, working bibliography only of you have to prepare the list of the working bibliography. The working bibliography leads you to travel a proper research destinations. Then after reading the books, the basic books on your selected research problem, you have to frame your hypothetical questions. The hypothesis which help you to reach in proper way. If you don't frame your hypothetical question is in proper way, your research become very difficult to complete your research. The hypothesis is very much important. Especially in ethnographical study, the hypothesis is very much, that is the important component in ethnographical study. The hypothesis, only it is, what do you mean the hypothesis? It is a kind of a temporary assumption or conclusions, whatever you are going to prove or disprove in your research. So on the basis of that, a historian must to play vital role in bringing a framing, a formulating a suitable hypothesis that they selected for the research problem of that. So here on the basis of the hypothesis, on the basis of the hypothesis, the researcher have to collect source material, mostly the primary and the secondary sources. The researcher has to collect from different resources, from libraries, from archives, from the maybe the records room. So on the basis of the collection of the data is very much important. Then after collection, the criticism you have to apply in the testing, or you have to test the value of the data. The value of the data, how you test? Through apply the critique of the source material. That is called the criticism of the study. There is internal criticism is there, the external criticism there. Both the criticism which help a researcher to test the authentication of the source material in proper way. In that way, it is very much important. So the hypothesis, on the basis of the hypothesis, you collect the data. Then in the collection of the, after the collection of the data, the synthesis of the data is very much important. The synthesis operations. That is called the grouping of the fact, organizing the data, or uniting the fact. On the basis of the uniting the fact, that is called a proper documenting. The documenting of your research, the work. If you properly synthesize your research finding, that will be, you get a very good thesis. So there is a kind of undertaking. Then you have to start with the hypothesis, then synthesis, finally you get the thesis. The thesis, if accepted, this is become a theory, but universally accepted theory become the law in historical or any kind of the research. So now I come to ethnographic study. The ethnographical study is very much important. It is become a part of a historical study. Those who collect the ethnographical data, those who do ethnographical study and research, they are called as the ethnographer. The ethnographer, they play a vital role in collecting empirical data from the field visit or the case study. That is the two important, I'll come later, what are the methods of collecting the data, what are the data, how we analyze the data in the ethnographical study, how the ethnography is very much important in understanding the ethnic culture of a particular community or a group of community. Now, if you see the word ethnography, it is a combination of two Greek words, ethnography. Ethno, which means the people of folk, graphy means writing, which simply means a writing or study about the people of a particular region or particular society. So, ethnography is a scientific research of different race and culture. There are many methods we use. So, it is a kind of, the ethnographical study is often used in the field of social sciences, particularly in the field of sociology and anthropology. And nowadays in history also we maintain the ethnographical study. The ethnography is also a part of historical study. It studies the human past and present. So how we understand in ethnographical research, through looking of the present culture, the present scenario of a particular community, we can look back the past culture. looking back or looking the past through the present scenario. That is why it is the very effective. In India, there are many ethnographers become very popular. From even from the Western countries, they studied Indian culture, mostly the Indologists. They stayed here in India. They intensively studied the caste system, our cultural value, our social pattern, our settlement history, everything they studied by mostly the Western scholars. When they studied the Indian cultural pattern, they applied the ethnographical methods in studying our indigenous culture. One of the very popular, the famous Yemen ethnographer, we can call is the anthropologist, sociologist, very famous Indian sociologist, Yemen Srinivas. He is based on field study. They applied the case study method. Mostly they selected some villages or particular villages. They studied very extensively about the functions and the structure of the caste system in the real society. On the basis of, I'll come to later, how Yemen Srinivas and Louis Dumont, they undertook their ethnographical study in the field of anthropological research. What are the aspects we study in ethnography? I told you the ethnography is a kind of study which study about the folk, the people. Mostly, wherever we don't get written evidences. For examples, for instance, if you want to study about any ethnic social groups for any tribal community, their cultural pattern, their social practices, their economic importance, their cultural values, they don't have any, we don't get any written records from any sources. So how we record, how you collect the data? Through observation methods, through participation method, through interview method or questionnaire methods, we have to record their sources, record their practices, record their traditions. On the basis of that, what are the study, the elements, what are the components we study in ethnographical study? It is study about the people, maybe ethnic people, a primitive people, or indigenous people. We also study about ethnic groups and other ethnic formations. Their ethnogenesis, the composition, resettlement, social welfare, their material and spiritual culture. What do you mean material and spiritual culture? In studying ethnographical study about the community or race or the caste, the material culture we understand from their material remains. Whatever they have, whatever they are using, still in their lifestyle, it is traditionally they borrowed their tradition from the past. If still that is existing in their present life also, that we carry their aspect. Whatever the material remains they have in the present, whatever we study from their material remains, that is called the material culture. The spiritual culture in the form of tradition, in the form of beliefs, in the form of the practices, whatever they follow, that we have to understand from their the spiritual, the value of their culture from maybe through interview method, through the participation and observation method. So on the basis of that, it is how the ethnographical studies become a part of in historical study. What is the main objective of the ethnographical study? I told you the ethnographic study, it's a kind of scientific investigation. It's study about the people culture, their ethnic identity, their social value, and their cultural pattern. What is the main objective of the ethnographical study? The study to introduce different ethnographic research methods. There are different methods we introduce. The participation method, observation method, interview method, or questionnaire method we follow in ethnographical study. That is to introduce the different aspects, different methods in adopting the ethnographical study. Another important aspect, another important objective, to allow researchers to appreciate the different ethnographical methods used in understanding different culture, their beliefs and practices. Then another important aspect, to understand the community life through different methods. It is a kind of the understanding we'll find to collect the reliable, the qualitative and quantitative data. Ethnographers must frame questions carefully and culturally and appropriate manner. So, while collecting the data, the ethnographer has to very carefully frame the questions. If ethnographer want data relating to the ethnic culture of a particular community, he has to frame the data, the questionnaire method. He has to, maybe yes or no question he has framed. That way he can give some options. If they want to study about the economic pattern of maybe income pattern of a particular community or the particular villages, they have to frame some certain questions to get answer from the people. So there is, in that way, the questionnaire method, then interview method the follow. In interview method, maybe the small talk, the conversation method. Maybe they can ask question, they will answer. We can record in the phone. We can record their voices, their interview, even video clipping also we can make. On the basis of these different technique and methods, we record the value, the cultural value. Then that become recorded history. So wherever we don't find a written records or written sources to understand the culture of a particular community, that ethnographer in the study of ethnography, they have to undertake a different methods to record, to document the historical value. In that way, the ethnographer play vital role in studying the ethnic culture of the particular community. So another, when the ethnographic ideas emerged, when the ethnographic research became very familiar in the worldwide and India, how it's become very the part of the understanding of historical studies. The reconstruction of history, an area and the people, we have no written history. Ethnography, it is a kind of the reconstruction of the history, which from where we don't get the record, maybe written records. The Nicholas B. Dukes, he says that the term ethnohistory, the first used in 1909 by Clerk Whistler. In 1940s, North American anthropologists, archaeologists historians use the term systematically and usually to study the history of the original inhabitants or the primitive people of a particular lands. It is originally emerged from the Northern America. The Western scholars, they undertook a several initiative, the several research on based on the ethnographic study. In 1960, it is developed as a new branch in the study of the history and anthropological study. After 1960 or 17 onwards, the ethnographical study is a separate a subject in history, in archaeological study. Even in archaeological study, we study about the ethnoarchaeology, ethnobotany, ethnography, ethnic culture. These all become part of the historical study from 1960 onwards. So, hence, ethnography is essentially it's very important study in which used in the historical and ethnographical method and materials to gain knowledge of nature and causes of change in the culture. So, whatever change, whatever we find the cultural importance of a community or a particular settlement, we can find, we can understand as the ethnic culture of the particular regions. The ethnography is often used for gathering empirical data on human society and culture. The empirical data, I already told you what you mean empirical data. In ethnographical study, data collection is done through different methods. I told you some methods of collecting the data in ethnographical studies. The first method, the participation method, is very much suitable method of ethnographical study. The participation method, if you want to get a data relating to their marriage practices, if you want data relating to their rituals, their ceremonies. So, as an ethnographer, they have to participate in their socio-religious functions. Through participation method, they collect data from their cultural value. The participation method very best suitable method in ethnographical study. The next method, the participant observation method. They participate in their social function as well as they become the observer. They are very minute observer, very keen observer. They observe very keenly about the value, their beliefs, their practices from the observation. It is a kind of the observation point of view. They collect the data from the field study. The field study and case studies is very much important method in collecting data in ethnographical studies. The interview method, the questionnaire method, these are the four important, the basic methods in collecting the historical data or ethnographical data from the people or from the primitive social groups. So, ethnography aims to describe the nature of the people through writings, through observing, through participating, through collecting data through interviews. They want to study about the ethnic culture of the people. In the methodology of social science, the ethnographic is called, the study of ethnography is called is the field study or a case report. The field study or case study more or less synonyms of the ethnographical research we can find. So ethnographical study deals with the study of the diversity of the human culture in their particular cultural settings. So even in my department, we always encourage students for ethnographic study. We have a separate teacher of ethnoarchaeology. She always do research on ethnography and ethnoarchaeology. Even we carry the student to teach them the ethnic culture in the field study. So always we carry the student to the archaeological sites, or if they want to study about the ethnography, we carry the MPhil and PhD students for teaching the ethnic culture or archaeological setting of the particular regions of that. This method has developed in early anthropological field. It has become a familiar research activities in the field of historical research. So in ethnographical study, one of the common methods for collecting ethnographical data is direct method. It is a first-hand observation of daily participation in the social functions. It is a common method. If you want to study about the marriage system of a particular community, maybe a tribal community, you have to stay in their villages. Even Louis Duman is a French Indologist. He stayed in Tamil Nadu nearly 1 year to collect data through the participation and field study method. He stayed in Madurai. 1 year he stayed. He did very extensively study on the structure of the community in the Madurai, in and around Madurai regions. He specifically study about the primarily color community, how the society is functioning, how the caste system become the important social stigma, how important in all the social activities of in even the modern villages, it's mostly based on the caste structure. They studied very extensively, Louis Duman, about the structure of the caste system, how it's really functioning in the real villages. We always study the structural pattern only. Whatever text says, what's early text says about the caste system, it is mostly based on the hierarchical structure. In the hierarchical structure, some occupy in the topmost, some people occupy in the lower ladder, in the lowest stage. Some people, it is topmost in the social hierarchy, some in second category, some third, some lower category, the fourth category. In the same way, we textual understanding of the Varna concept, we study from the structurally. Whatever you study the textual understanding on the basis of structure, which mentioned in the early literature or the Dharma Sastra literature, if you carry the same idea in the real villages, you don't find the structure there. Structurally is different, functionally is different. That is the M.N. Srinivas studied about the function of the caste system. Louis Duman studied about the structure of the society. On the basis of that, there are two researchers of the M.N. Srinivas or Louis Duman. It is a kind of the study, the field study, the case study they undertook in understanding the cultural pattern in the social setting of in real villages. They selected different villages. M.N. Srinivas' research mostly based on the Kurk region of Mysore. Louis Duman selected the Madurai regions. On the basis of their understanding, their method, both of the Louis Duman and M.N. Srinivas, they applied ethnographical approach, ethnographical study in understanding the anthropological, the value of the society, the value of the the caste in different regions. So it is a kind of, it is the whatever we collect the data from the ethnographical study, it is a kind of eyewitness, a first-hand observation, the first-hand, the important, the primary sources we collect through the ethnographical data. So another important methods, it is the interview method. It is which was included the conversation with the different levels and small talk. It is pre-planned interview. Even casual interview also we can take. You can frame already the questions, whatever you need data. On the basis of the casual interview or pre-planned the question interview, the both the way you can collect the data from a different level of that. The data collection through interview is the familiar method in ethnographical study. The interview method is one of the important, the familiar method. Traditionally, the ethnographer focus attention on the community selecting informants. You have to select the respondent. Even if you take a study about ethnographic study on a particular tribal community, if you select a Pachamalay or Kollimalay, there are Malayalis are there. If you want to study about the ethnic social identity or their ethnic culture, you have to select. We cannot visit all the villages. We cannot collect sources from all the respondents. We have to select maybe the 100 respondents or 150 respondents on the basis of our limitation of the study. We have to collect the data from the respondent through the questionnaire methods. Those who give the information, the informants, they become very valuable. They are the preserver of the real, the cultural value from the past. The informant, mostly the senior citizen, they carry their experiences, their value of their culture. They pass their culture from generation to the generations. Even if you want to study about the herbal medicine, the traditional medicine of the India or the Tamil culture, we don't have any written records. Even we have the Siddha tradition. We have own Ayurveda traditions. We own all the indigenous traditions. We have to preserve. We have to keep in as a record through the ethnographical study. Whatever we collect the data through ethnographical study, ethnographical research method, that become a recorded history. That become the recorded history of we know well activities of the community from the ethnographical study. There are standard method of the collection. It's already also very important. On the basis of that, what is the data? In historical analysis and in ethnographical understanding, in ethnographical method, how we discover the data, records, and accounts. Whatever we collect the data. In ethnographical study, what are the primary sources we have? Whatever we collect through observation, participation, interview method, or questionnaire method, all comes under the primary sources. First-hand virgin sources, we can call it. First-hand, the primary sources. The primary, apart from these sources which we collected through the different methods, which also include the oral testimony of the eyewitnesses, documents, records, relics in the form of the practices. These all will bring under the category of the primary sources. When we frame the bibliography, the observation, the interview methods, those who, if you interview any person, a personality in a village, you have to give in the primary sources in the list of the bibliography. What are the secondary sources in the ethnographical study? So it is include the reports, the person who relate the accounts, the books, the encyclopedia, and the manuals, and the journals articles. We can all bring under the category of the secondary sources. The selecting the historical data through ethnographical study. So what are the, apart from the cultural study of a particular community, apart from the understanding the social pattern or the ethnic identity of the particular community, what are the other aspects we study in ethnographical studies? We study the life histories. The life histories of the a personality, a towering personality, maybe the unknown personality, it's become very unidentified, the life histories, that is also we can bring under the category of the ethnographical studies. So then community settlement is the settlement of the community. So we find most of the settlement in the river belt regions, how they settle. Even if you look at the India, even if you look at the Tamil Nadu, those who are doing agricultural works from since time immemorial, they are the original inhabitants of the land. So how we study about the agricultural community, their settlement pattern, their practices, their value, how we understand the cultural, the pattern of the indigenous community. This all we bring under the category of the ethnographical study. Then conflict cases between the two social groups. Even if you look at the Chola period, we have a very, very difficult pattern, the social divisions we have, Valangai and Idangai social groups. One side the artisan community, another one agricultural community. How they struggled each other, how conflicted each other, how they play vital role in the different social formations in a particular geographical landscape. So all we study in ethnographical study. So ethnography is the principal data gathering method in cultural and social anthropology. It is a kind of study, data collection we collect through the method in cultural and social anthropology. It is the purest form. Ethnographer assume the role of the participant observation methods. Rather than examining a cultural form, a physical or intellectual distance, the researcher enter and participate in their culture. Even we used to watch in geographical discovery, National Geography, how the people, the ethnographer, they understand the tribal culture through participation method. They become the part of their culture. They become the part of the their social life, their cultural life. If you don't go near to them, it's not easy to get the real data, a real picture from the value, or maybe from the people. The researcher observe the living culture through ethnographical study, kinships and gender roles, the division of labor, rituals, the concept of ownership, and by participation in it can better understand the meaning behind, observe the behavior pattern of a particular social settings. So we understand about the social division of labor. Even if you look at even Varna Jati concept based on the occupations, in each every Varna on the basis of occupation, they were performed their prescribed lawful occupation on the basis of Dharmasastric idea. Even if you look at the Dharma Shastras, it clearly says that the lawful occupation of the Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, Vaisyas, and Sudras, there no one allowed to marry outside the own Varna. That is also they maintain the purity. Even still, we have the tribal culture or indigenous culture. They don't allow the outsider enter into become the part of their social culture. They maintain maybe the stigma. They strictly maintain maybe they don't allow anyone to interfere, to enter in the culture. So through marriage relation only, the rest. In that way, we can call that is the purity and impurity. How to maintain the purity? We talk about the purity and pollution in modern India. Still, a practice of untouchability is going. Purity and impurity we are talking about when we discuss about the caste. How you measure the purity? Is there any parameter? Is there any scale for measuring the purity of one's social identity? But all it's very complicated, it's very difficult social pattern we have in Indian history. It is very difficult to understand the function of the caste, the function of the Varna. It is already over. It is nearly 2000 years old. The caste system, it's deeply rooted our Indian society. Knowingly, unknowingly, we are living in that same condition only. We cannot remove. We cannot go away from the structure. We are living in the structure only. In the structural understanding, how we, in the ethnographical study, how we study the cultural pattern and the cultural value of the particular the social setting or geographical landscape. The researcher or ethnographer selects single settlements or multiple settlements to collect data through the social survey. The social survey also is an important method in ethnographical study. They can select a single village, a single community you can select. In that way, Louis Duman selected only a particular primal community. He studied very deeply about the function and structure of the community. Even he participated in their marriages. He participated in the social practices, in cultural functions. That way, the Louis Duman, they collected a different source material through participating in the cultural value. We can collect data related to migration, both urban and rural migration. In social settings, social mobility, that we will call the social movement, is very much important. Both upward mobility, downward mobility we'll find in the social setting. Horizontal mobility we find. Vertical mobility we find. Some people, they migrate from the urban to rural. Some social group, they migrate from the rural to urban. Both way we can find the social mobility of the people. Some social groups want to try to elevate as the one social status to the next one. On the basis of that, it is a kind of a historical study. It is based on ethnographical study. Anthropologists, historians, they study both qualitative and quantitative research. It is an ethnographical study, virtually a qualitative research, where it is a ethnographical responsibility in depth study about the everyday life and practices of the people. It is a new approach. We have to, as a teacher of a different history, we are teaching different history or social history or economic history or archaeological history. As a teacher, we have to encourage our student in involving in ethnographical study in future. It is a kind of ethnographical generate understanding of culture through representation of what we call insider point of view. All the ethnographers, they are not outsider point of view. If you participate in their function, if you become the observer, a deep observer, you become the insiders. Insider point of view and ethnographic understanding is developed through close exploration of several sources of understanding the cultural pattern of the particular settings. I think there are, one very popular historian, Upinder Singh. She has written several works on the particular aspect. She emphasized on ethnography, study of living culture. She also focused ethnoarchaeology. It is the important studies of the behavior and practices of living communities in order to understand the archaeological evidence relating to the community of the past. Through understanding the present, through looking the present, we can understand the past culture. Whatever we have, the archaeological remains in the form of the tools, in the form of the kinds, through the present material remains, we understand the past culture that is called the ethno-archaeological methods, ethno-archaeological study. Through the archaeological material, we understand the cultural, the past of the people. In Indian subcontinent, very traditional, it is we study about the modern craftsmen, about the understanding of the craft history of the a particular setting. Recently expired historian from JNU, Vijay Ramasamy. She extensively studied about the craftsman and artisan community of the South India. Mostly, she focused in understanding, in writing, reconstructing about the Vishwakarma community, their cultural value, their social settings. She studied very intensely to understand about the ethnic social group, the Vishwakarma community. She also undertook ethnographical approach in studying, in reconstructing the history of the particular craftsman, particular artisan community. So it is a very vast subject, ethnographical study. I request all the teachers, all the participants to encourage their students in involving in ethnographical research. In future, I think my lecture will be very useful to you, those who really attentive in the participation of the workshop, faculty development program. I really thank. So on the basis of the ethnographical study, it is a study about the people, their ethnic culture, their ethnic identity. It is a kind of the study. It is very popular in recent field of the historical study. Different methods they adopt: observation, the participation method, interview method, the questionnaire method. On the basis of these kind of the methods, they collect the data, the ethnographer analyze the data, then synthesize the data. They give very excellent their thesis, their presentation, their documentation in their writings, in their reconstructing the real history of the people from the ethnographical perspective. So now I stop. Once again, I thank Dr. Abbas sir for giving me very wonderful opportunity to speak with you of my few ideas, my view on regarding the ethnographical studies. I stop, then if there are any question, we can discuss. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, sir.
Dear participants, do you have any questions? Please ask your questions in chat. Do you have any questions? Please ask your questions in chat box.
One of the question is asked by what is the
Scope of
maybe the scope for qualitative research in historical study of that. So whatever we study in history, all qualitative research. Normally we don't deal with the numerical value. In some cases, if we study about the economy, we study about the other aspect, we follow the quantitative method. So whatever we study about the cultural value or the social, the importance of the people or the culture, it is all become the part of the qualitative research. We are historians, we always do the qualitative research in bringing the cultural value in the scene of the historical world. So we have all the historical study, some will study the quantitative research, but in history, even in the sociology and anthropology, we study, we undertake the qualitative research. We have very scope in future. We have, if you take any effective study of the qualitative research, it's really help a researcher in getting a proper idea and proper the knowledge and from the unknowing, from the known fact, from the unknown fact. So thank you. Do we have any software to use? Now qualitative, we don't have any. I don't think of that. The quantitative data, we analyze the data, we analyze the variable through using of different the method in the software. We analyze the data in variables. We find the variables. Even if on the basis of the hypothesis we frame, we find the various variable. We can compare the data from the different level. We can find the differences value. But in ethnographical data, we don't have a kind of a software to analyze. That is a kind of the expression. It's a kind of the result. It's a kind of your own view through understanding of the past culture. We don't find in the numerical value. Maybe the mathematical methods we don't use in the qualitative research. It is a kind of the observation, a kind of the collecting data, a kind of a scientific research we do in a qualitative research. Yes. Mostly, how we can differentiate the qualitative and quantitative research. The qualitative research I'll give. I have the definition of the quantitative research. The quantitative research is based on the value of quantity is generally applied to subject like export, import, the population, static survey, which can be calculated in terms of the quantity. It is a systematic investigation of the social phenomena with the support of statistics, mathematical techniques. But the qualitative research, which concerned with investigating the underlying causes, the motives and desires for human behavior. So that is, we study about the human behavior. If you study about the human culture, the human value, there is no software for analyzing the human value. But you have to, through your understanding, if you, for example, if you study about the income pattern of the particular community, a particular society, if you fix the income, the monthly income of your family, of SC or ST or the tribal community or any backward community, if you fixed the 5,000, it is the numerical value. If you analyze the what is the causes for their backwardness, what is the causes for their low income, if you analyze the causes, that will be the qualitative idea, qualitative approach.
Thank you, sir.
Yes.
Santosh Kumar, you have a question, Rika?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Finish pannidunga.
Sir, may I, sir? Hello?
Hello?
Okay.
Sir, may I ask you something?
Yes, yes, you can proceed.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
There is one question is there, how much minimum time of that? No, there is no minimum time
This is
of
the last question. This is the last
data
question.
you need. So
Okay,
if you
sir.
need more data, you have to stay there after that. If you become a participant or the observer of a particular villages, and if you stay 1 or 2 months, or you cannot understand really what is going in their cultural settings. You have to stay, you have to mingle with the people. Unless you go very close to them, you don't get much references, much idea, much information from them. For that, you have to stay at least some prescribed time in their villages.
Okay, sir. Thank you,
Hello,
sir.
sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. On behalf of the Department of History, MEM College for Women in Tindukal, Tamil Nadu, I express my heartfelt thanks to our today resource persons, Dr. B.Rajalingam from Calcutta, Viswabharati University, Central University in Calcutta. And I would like thanks to all the participants. I also thanks the organizing team and the staff members of the department. And I also would like thanks to technical team Santosh Kumar and Rajalingam. Once again, I thanks one and all. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, sir. You can leave now, sir.
I sign out.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, sir.
Sir, send me a link.
Okay, sir. Okay.
Send me the recorded link. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.